Everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today, I'm sharing an extraordinary story that will truly make you think about life and what might lie beyond. It's the near-death experience of Elane Durham when she almost dies from a brain tumor. Elane's experience is nothing short of extraordinary. She stood at the edge of life and death, and what she experienced during that time is beyond what words can capture. Though Elane can't share her journey with us in person, we are privileged to bring you a glimpse into her life-altering encounter. So join us as we delve into the profound visions, emotions, and insights Elane gained when she crossed over to the other side, and returned to share her incredible tale.
I had a stroke, precipitated by a brain tumor, followed by a marvelous experience. I must tell you that this experience was the most singular and most important thing that has ever happened to me. At the time I was attending the American Floral Arts School in Chicago, and was just 3 days short of graduation. It seemed as if I had a cold coming on, a headache had plagued me for a couple of days, and I felt lethargic. My cousin and some school friends went sightseeing while I went back to the hotel room, which I shared with her, to rest. I had dinner in the hotel with a friend, after which things got hazy and I don't remember much. Apparently, I went back to the hotel room and got in bed. I remember looking at the clock, and it was 12:20 a.m. By 12:40 a.m. they had me in the hospital emergency room. My cousin, who had returned home and had retired, awakened me when she heard me cry out. She noticed blood on my lip where I had bitten it during a seizure. I was not aware that I was having seizures, I just felt tired, as if I were ill with a bad cold. When a couple of seizures happened in the presence of my cousin, she went next door in the hotel to get help. A classmate from school called the paramedics, who arrived just in time to witness me having another seizure. Despite my objections, they took me to Mercy Hospital in Chicago. There were 5 seizures by the time I reached the hospital. By 1:05 a.m. my heart had stopped for the second time. They revived me, but by this time I had lost my ability to speak, my eyesight was gone, and I had no sense of feeling. It was sort of a twilight state that I was in, not caring about anything physical that was happening to me. However, as my physical senses deteriorated, my spiritual senses sharpened. I became strangely aware of certain things concerning myself. I knew the nurse who was attending me was having difficulty. From some spiritual sense I understood that she had never seen anyone die before. Such inevitable consequences of my physical emergency were troubling her. I knew that she was from the 3rd floor. I knew that they were short-handed. I knew they had brought her in to help. I heard the doctor say to her, "Look, if you can't handle this, we'll get you out of here and get someone else who can handle it." As the nurse continued to struggle with her emotions, I became aware that she was offering a prayer. It wasn't heard with my ears, but I could feel her prayer. By this time the medical people became concerned with what my religion was. My cousin was Catholic, and they assumed that I was too, so they sent for a priest to give me last rites. I heard their discussion about getting a priest. Cautioning them, the nurse said she was afraid I would hear them talking about my impending death. The doctor responded, "She can't hear anything. She's out of it." I next remember hearing the nurse greet the priest with a sigh of relief. She exclaimed something on the order of, "Oh my God, Father, I'm so glad you're here," and he responded, "What do we have here?" She proceeded to tell him that I had experienced 11 seizures that she knew they could, and that I was a very sick girl. He said that he was going to pray because we needed God's help. He told me to move something if I could hear him. I don't know whether I was able to move or not. As he started to pray, I could feel it. I recognized that it was much more than the last rites. He finished the last rites per se and continued with the prayer. It felt as if it were a power that washed over me in a series of, like megavolts of electricity. It was. I can't explain what it was like. There was a feeling of spiritual power. Then I felt a pressure on my chest. I didn't recognize it as a heart attack, but I heard them code me. The priest later said that they quickly moved him out when that happened, and it would have been impossible for me to see him, yet I did. The next thing that I can remember is running across the fields of grass. There were maybe 5 or 7 people that were there waiting for me. And I realized that one of them was my grandmother who died when I was 9 years old. The other one was my husband's friend Virginia, and she had just died the previous February. There was sound in the air that completely defies description. It was as if there were a multitude of voices, and a multitude of instruments, blended and playing soft music. The twittering of birds, and other beautiful sounds, were all melodically instrumented into the music which wafted through the air. The sounds just flowed into me in a soft, soft manner. Looking about me, I turned toward the right, and I saw a distant light that resembled a bright star. The light began to move toward me at an incredible rate of speed. At the same time, I had a sense of moving toward the light. As the light got closer to me, I realized that it had a personality to it. Love and understanding were emanating from the light. It was the most intense amount of love that you can imagine. It was as though you were in the presence of the one person in your life who had loved you beyond anything, despite what you might have done, and that love was magnified many times. That's how it was, in a way. At that point the light spoke to me, only not in language as here on earth. It spoke to me from everything that it was into everything that I was. I not only heard it, but I understood it with every fiber of my being. There was total communication between that being and my being. I was back in my body with a body slam, and the defibrillators were above me getting ready to jolt me again. They continued to work with me, but when my heart stopped again for the last time, I was pushed to one side to be prepared for the morgue. In this second phase of my near-death experience, I left my body behind and merged with an infinite expanse of shimmering, diamond-like sparkles. I was one with them, and they were one with me. It was a feeling of pure bliss and unity, beyond anything I could have ever imagined. As I existed within this cosmic tapestry, I was shown visions of the future. As the angel pointed in front of me, a wide view of land and water opened up, so that at first I thought I was seeing two countries. Instantly it was made known to me that I was looking at a vastly changed portion of North America, which was completely divided by a large body of water, and which had lost a large part of both eastern and western shorelines. As I saw this, I was given a total understanding of the natural and man-made disasters that would need to occur to make these changes, and I was informed that these might or might not come to pass according to our choices as a people, according to my choices as an individual. In this scenario, icebergs and polar ice caps were melting. Earthquakes had occurred, and there had been hurricanes and fierce storms. The whole country had been ravaged by these things. I could also see massive fires burning here and there, not so much the flames as the smoke that was ascending toward me, as huge areas of the country seemed to be being burned. There were also explosions in some areas, sort of like sheet lightning in a dark sky, that were doing great damage. Where Washington and Oregon had been, there were mostly islands, the water coming inland over most of California and Arizona and parts of Utah and Nevada. Yet there were also islands there, massive ones, so it wasn't like it was all ocean. On the east coast I saw that much of the eastern seaboard was gone, though the water did not come so far inland as it did on the west coast. I was also aware that the southern half of Florida was underwater. I don't remember seeing anything like Central America or South America, for water surrounded what I was seeing, and I didn't really focus on what was beyond that water. Yet at the same time, I had the understanding that the waters had risen around the entire earth, and that everything had changed to one degree or another. The area of water in the middle of the United States was massive, and was widest or most extensive in the north. There were no Great Lakes as I had known them, for all of them had come together into this huge sea that extended northeastward into the ocean. The inland sea also extended southward, filling most of the Mississippi and Missouri River valleys and widening by many, many miles the Mississippi River, where it flows into what we know as the Gulf of Mexico. This sea was so vast that I knew it could not be bridged, and so in essence the United States had become as two separate countries. I was also aware that the seat of power, or patriotism, had moved away from Washington, D.C. There was so much turmoil and warfare on the eastern side of this body of water that no authority really existed there. I understood then that in the scenario I was being shown, our country had come to the very edge of destruction, to the brink of losing everything, because myself and hosts of others like me had chosen to seek worldly things rather than loving or serving others. Additionally, we had refused to care for our precious natural resources. Because of our greed and selfishness, our national government had lost most of its power, and could no longer completely govern or control. National laws were ignored, and there was no true nationwide governmental infrastructure left. What government there was seemed to be territorial, sort of like large tribes or groups of people who had banded together. And I saw that because of the ramifications of these day-to-day choices, the people, especially on the eastern side of this new body of water, lived in great danger and fear. There was tremendous anarchy and crime, sort of like the Los Angeles riots spread nationwide. And the normal citizens kept themselves hidden away from all this, barricading themselves into their homes or wherever they had gathered together for security. Many children didn't go to school, commerce as we know it had pretty much ceased, many people were starving to death, there was terrible violence from people who seemed like roving gangs, it was just an awful scene of confusion and turmoil. Yet in this scenario there was less of that turmoil on the western portion of our country. There was even a certain amount of prosperity, and it was there that I could see the new seat of power, if that is what it could be called. This area, or city, or whatever, while on the eastern edge or shoreline of the western portion of land, was located in almost the exact center of the combination of both halves of the country. Later, when I looked at a map of the United States, I realized that it would have been very near present-day Kansas City. From this location I could see power radiating outward, almost like light flowing out to strengthen and stabilize other areas. This power was what I called patriotism or strong moral character or spirituality, a true spiritual force that was the only real governing power over the whole land. This is why I called that area the seat of power. But I must state this power was totally spiritual, a true power of spirit such as the angel beside me was exhibiting, or that I had felt emanating from Christ while I had been in his presence. I also sensed that some of the Indians, the Native Americans, were partially responsible for the peacefulness that was on the western side of this water. Some of these Native American peoples had a knowledge of how to live from the land, or how to be in harmony with it so it would bring forth in abundance according to their needs. They were teaching this spiritual knowledge to the people around them, and all the people were starting to learn to live in harmony with each other. At the same time they were beginning again to prosper by becoming harmonious with nature, or the natural elements upon which they depended.
I hope this story has resonated with you as much as it did with me. If it did, be sure to leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, experiences, or any questions you might have. And if you found this video meaningful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for spending this time with me today, and remember, sometimes the most profound insights come from the stories we least expect. Until next time, take care and stay curious.